This stuff lights your fireman, the pilot lights out.
This football team is coming into our place. We're standing in our way.
This is a game of the heart. Focus and finish.
Hey, just one game left to go in week 13 of fantasy football, and some of you may need big production out of tonight's game to make your playoffs, so good luck with that if that's you. And hey, if you're out of it, you can still enjoy fantasy football the rest of the way by playing daily fantasy football. So how does that work? Well, you get to pick a brand spanking new roster each week, and you can win some money to boot. Now, you could play games for as little as a George Washington, or for hundreds or more if you're aggressive and it fits your budget. So go to DraftKings.com, and if you open up a new account, they'll match your deposit, and you'll also get a free entry into a Millionaire Grand Final qualifier. Now, we can talk about Eric Decker, Josh Gordon, or Alshon Jeffrey, but you didn't come here looking for advice from Captain Obvious. So let's talk about some fantasy players and trends that you may not have been thinking about that may help you in your fantasy playoffs or in your daily games the rest of the way. Now, Roddy White is clearly healthy. Yesterday's 10 catches on 14 targets for 143 yards shows you he's fantasy relevant again. He's been dropped in tons of leagues, and with many people now out of it in your league, demand for waiver wire talent isn't going to be the same. In fact, he's someone you may want to think about picking up just so your competitor can't. Rookie Ladarius Green is the second tight end in San Diego behind Antonio Gates, but don't let his lack of experience or the fact that Gates is the main guy deter you from interest in him. The Chargers are starting to find out that his ability to run after the catch is too explosive not to use, and he's starting to get targets. 5 targets in week 11, another 5 targets in week 12, and 6 targets in week 13. Green has 9 catches for 206 yards and 2 touchdowns the past 3 weeks, and has absolutely become a viable fantasy option at a very thin position. And speaking of tight ends, if you were listening to me on Roto Experts in the Morning on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio last week, you heard me say that tight ends were great plays against the Arizona Cardinals. That's a trend that continued to work this weekend, as the Eagles tight ends Zach Ertz and Brett Selleck were targeted 12 times, combining for 9 receptions for 97 yards and 3 touchdowns. So it may be time to dust off Jared Cook next week, as the Rams travel to Arizona to take on the Cardinals in week 14. And speaking of trends, sometimes things are so obvious that we miss them. Now, you shouldn't be missing this one. Play defenses against the Jets. If you don't know why, well, just take my word for it. It works. It just does. The Chiefs started off 9-0 with 36 sacks through their first 9 games. Now they've lost 3 games in a row and have just 1 sack in the 3 games combined. But as the Kansas City defense has wilted in the spotlight, Alex Smith has flourished, finding himself in shootouts in order to keep pace with the opposition. Smith has thrown for almost 820 yards the past 3 games, with 7 touchdowns and just 2 interceptions, totaling 21 points or more in weeks 11, 12, and 13. So if you're looking for quarterback help, don't ignore the steady production Alex Smith is putting out. Today's Twitter question comes from @TreyKirby, who wants to know if he can use Josh McCown in his playoffs. Hey, why not? Look, with the offensive weapons he has to work with, how could you not consider him a viable option? He's thrown for over 700 yards the past 2 weeks with 4 touchdowns and just 1 interception. Now, if that's not something you consider a usable option, I don't know what is. Frankly, I'm pretty shocked at how little owned he is throughout leagues. Now, if you've got a question you want answered, hit me up with a tweet, and if I don't use your question on the program, I'll tweet you back with my best advice, or at least I'll give it a shot. And be sure to tune in to the Roto Experts Fantasy Football News Notes and Analysis segment every weekday. I'll be here to keep you current and ahead of the competition, and on weekends, come back for This Week in Fantasy Football, as I team up with the King, Scott Engel, covering the week that was and the week that will be, answering your viewer questions. Now, there's one of the more entertaining matchups of the season tonight, with the Saints visiting the Seahawks on Monday Night Football. Good luck to all of you that have skin in the game, and for the rest of you, just sit back and relax and enjoy the chess match. For Roto Experts, I'm Mike Cardano.